That's not what I wanted to see.
All right, we are back in session, and I see that Commissioner Stroud has his card up.
You can go back there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Stroud, District 5. I move to submit proposal C30, Department of Sheriff Ombuds, to the ballot for consideration by the voters.
All right, we have a motion to move C30, Sheriff Ombuds, on page 64 to the ballot for voters. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, I think, was that Commissioner Rydell Kelly? Wonderful. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to yield the floor for an amendment.
Commissioner Ginn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Ginn, District 4. I'd like to propose an amendment to C30 that is not substantial.
Would you please?
The proposed amendment would replace the word sheriff in the title with public safety, and similarly replace the word sheriff with public safety in 1. Happy to email this. There's 3 other places in C30 where we'd be replacing the word sheriff with public safety ombuds to change the title accordingly.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor.
Clarification?
Yes.
So is everywhere where it says sheriff, you want public safety? Is that, it's not everywhere?
It's not everywhere because it refers to the executive department of sheriff as part of the scope of the ombuds. So I'm sorry, it's in the title. It's in number 1. There's hereby created the executive department of public safety ombuds. It is in number 4 to be considered a qualified candidate for public safety ombuds. And it is in the Section 3.3 change, except for those positions filled by election and the public safety ombuds.
Thank you for that point of clarification. And Commissioner Green, would you like to speak to your?
I'll second. Second.
Oh, I thought Commissioner Rydell Kelly seconded. Oh, the main motion. Thank you. All right, so we have a second. Who's officially seconding? Commissioner Consuelo.
Point of clarification.
Yes, Commissioner Hannick, what is your point?
Again, you are inserting the word public safety instead of the word sheriff, but you're not changing to provide the words to provide any kind of oversight of the executive department of sheriff. Is that still in there?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. To speak to my amendment, I believe this better reflects the scope of the ombuds in providing oversight to all law enforcement and corrections in Pierce County and not specifically about one role. But it does not change the scope or the implementation, anything else about the amendment. I just think it's a more appropriate title for this role.
All right, Commissioner Rohr.
Commissioner Rohr, District 6. Are we able to get, is it in print or just can you email it to us? Thank you.
Vice Chair Lentz is working on an email right now. Any additional discussion? Commissioner Herrera?
Commissioner Herrera, District 2. So maybe I didn't hear correctly, but just a point of clarification. It is now C30 is, instead of just the sheriff, all public safety, including like all police departments? Is that correct?
That was already the intent of the proposal, so you mean the Pierce County Law Enforcement and Corrections.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Because we would not have jurisdiction over cities, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. I just needed that clarified. Thank you.
We will wait a moment for the language to get sent out to everyone. So I guess we'll just sit here for a moment. Thank you, Vice Chair Lentz, for your work.
Nominate Mason to
Oh, Commissioner Fletcher, there's a request for singing. And a second from Commissioner Rohr.
Well, I do take requests.
The floor is yours until we get this email, so.
Only if Troy sings with me. That's my amendment.
All right, Mr. Lentz.
Okay, so that's been emailed. Sorry about that. I thought that we had that squared away. We talked about it, and because it was just such a few words, I guess it didn't get followed through. I apologize. That's been emailed, and you're going to be getting it as soon as the clerk is able to send it out to the rest of us.
All right, back to you, Commissioner Fletcher. To hear.
Let's see. The only real songs in my head right now are Loch Lomond. You know, the Scottish one. You know, you take the high road, I take the low road. It's been all the World Cup, you know. I've been seeing them singing in towns like, gosh, that looks great. But you know, I couldn't do the song justice if I tried right now.
Very humble of you.
I'm trying to maintain the integrity of the song.
It's in your inbox, and I don't know if Claire has it, but Katie has it.
All right, y'all, I just really appreciate the work to get these things going. I know it's only 8:30. Good night is young. But I just appreciate county staff doing all their work. Commissioner Boyd.
I'm sorry, I just had I like it.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyd. All right, so all the commissioners should have that in your emails. It has been read into the public record. Vice Chair Lentz, would you like to speak to the motion?
Did you already speak to the motion? Okay, sorry. I was going to speak in favor of the amendment. As Commissioner again noted, this is a small wording change to more accurately reflect the nature of the proposed oversight office, which is public safety in general. As folks are aware, the office of the Department of Sheriff consists of a number of functions. It encompasses corrections, it encompasses patrol, it encompasses administration, and just to be clear that the intentionality of the ombuds function is for the entire law enforcement functioning in the county, which is by definition the office of sheriff, but wanted to have it more accurately reflect the encompassing responsibilities within the executive department of sheriff.
Any additional discussion? Commissioner Fletcher?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Fletcher, District 5. I am not in support of this motion, well, only because I think public safety ombuds, it's a bit of a bait and switch for what this will do, and I think it's. I don't think that changing public safety to sheriff improves this at all. I think sheriff ombuds is more appropriate because that's the purpose of this oversight. Public safety makes it more general. gives it greater appeal. But I want to give every word in this charter its full meaning and its common, ordinary understanding. And so if I'm looking at public safety ombuds, I'm less sure of what that means. But when I see sheriff ombuds, that seems more clear to me and what the oversight is intended to do. So I will be voting no because I want to promote clarity in the document, and I don't think this amendment does that. Thank you.
Commissioner Rohr?
Commissioner Rohr, District 6. I'll be voting no as well on this amendment. I do like the word public safety, but I think it's so broad that it's hard to define it. I think with all the language that currently exists in the amendment, it's more consistent to keep it the sheriff ombuds. So I think it's easier for the public to understand as well. So thank you.
And if members of the public could please not approach the dais during the middle of discussion, I would appreciate it. Thank you. So I don't. Oh, Commissioner Strickland.
I like the amendment. I think it's really smart, and it provides a lot of balance for the public to understand what we're talking about. So thank you.
Commissioner Rogi.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogi, District 3, and I will not be supporting the change because I do agree with Commissioner Fletcher that the Office of the Sheriff encompasses those three branches that Commissioner Lance was discussing and makes it very clear that this is related to the Office of the Sheriff, which is what it is. So I would rather it be clear and say what it is than just water it down with the words public safety that are pretty vague. Thank you.
Commissioner Herrera. This will be seconds. Or no, you just asked a point of clarification earlier, correct? Yeah, okay. Commissioner Herrera.
Thank you, Commissioner Herrera, District 2. I too do not support this amendment. I believe that public safety is too broad a term. I think the intent is to generalize or soften the original meaning, which is to create an office to oversee the sheriff's department. So I will not be supporting the amendment, and I am not in support of the ombuds in general. Thank you.
Great. I see no other firsts. So Commissioner Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Fletcher, District 5. Just to go off of the prior comment, sheriff is defined in the charter, at least the terms, scope of duty, and the purpose of the sheriff. That's in the charter. I did a cursory look in the section that the ombuds would supposedly go in. And I don't think I see public safety mentioned or at least defined in a meaningful way that would provide clarity. And so, I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the office is titled Executive Department of Sheriff, Section 3.70. And so, that just begs the question of another amendment might be needed to have consistency and additional clarity as to what public safety means, and therefore what a public safety ombuds would mean for the charter. Thanks.
Commissioner Willis.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Willis, District 3. Much to say, or piggyback off what Commissioner Fletcher has said, and a couple other fellow commissioners, the the word sheriff is definitely tied to several things. A, the existing charter office, and B, the former proposal of C30. The phrase public safety, however, is not. And I've had a little bit of time here to look this up, sitting in front of here with 3 computer screens. Public safety is broad and elastic. Can be stretched to include anything corrections related, jail functions, emergency management, interagency operations, contracted services, and potentially any county program officials claim relates to public safety. Kind of wording is bad constitutional drafting because the charter is supposed to provide a clear structure, line of continuity, not an open-ended bureaucratic expansion of definitions. I will be voting no on this amendment. Thank you.
Commissioner Ginn?
Thank you. Just to speak again to this amendment, this was an idea that came because of listening to public testimony. It seemed like there was a bit of confusion around sheriff referring to the specific role or the person. So it really was my intent to be clear that all those items that Mr. Willis, Commissioner Willis, my apologies, just mentioned are things that we want the ombuds to be able to receive public complaints about, to confirm what proper procedures are, to investigative procedures were followed, and to make recommendations. So I did consider also law enforcement ombuds, but I actually think public safety better refers to what the scope that we want in this office is. And this is where public safety is what the county spends 75% of their budget on. This is what the majority of the complaints that are received are about. So just trying to be respectful of resources and not making the scope too broad, I thought public safety would at least encapsulate the items that would be meaningful to the public. Thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, we will now take a vote on the motion to amend the proposal in the fashion that Commissioner Ginn read and it was emailed to commissioners and put on the screen. So we'll do a card vote just because I think verbal is going to be confusing. So all in favor of the amendment, please raise your cards. In favor, sorry.
11.
All opposed, please raise your cards.
I am confused.
8.
And then abstentions. Alright, so that motion passes, and I will go on to discussion of C30 as amended. Commissioner Strong?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Surratt, District 5. I'm very excited to support this proposal and send it to the voters, hopefully with the support of this commission. I am a strong believer in independent oversight. I think the county would really benefit it, or be benefited by that. This department should have been created by the voters, would cost money, but good government and good governance is worth the money, and indeed it requires it, whether it's for independent oversight or for the construction of roads and other transportation facilities. Good government is worth the investment. I also think the ultimate effect of the Ombuds Office will that it will pay dividends. It will bring some transparency with the office that presently I think many in the public do not feel is present there. And will hopefully build additional trust between the department and many constituents within Pierce County. We have heard repeatedly, at least I have personally heard through in-district meetings or through the campaign and through public testimony, about how people are concerned about the allocation of resources in the Sheriff's Department, whether people are being, whether deputies are being sent to East Pierce County or the Key Peninsula, whether people are being detained in a way that they see fit. This proposal will create a very specialized department that can effectively take in those public concerns, review them, and either deal with them or dismiss them. I think this is a companion to the good work that the Department of the Sheriff is completing on a day-to-day basis. And I think it provides a new tool within Pierce County that is not otherwise accomplished through the variety of agencies and institutions and bodies that provide some type of oversight to one specific element of law enforcement. I also wanted to make just a mention that I'm a strong believer in accountability in government offices, and I have been dismayed by what I think has been a recurring pattern by this body and by elected officials and by others who immediately provide severe and swift rejection of any element of accountability that is proposed by this body. We've had multiple proposals submitted before us, including sheriff ombuds. And this proposal was noted by the sheriff as being one that he would not support, would not collaborate with, should it be adopted by this body and sent to the ballot, and then adopted by the voters and inserted into this charter. We have had rejection of accountability elements by the courts for C-18. We have had significant concern about my C-40 vacancies proposal. This body gutted some of the key elements I thought were the best part of that. I had a very rich discussion with the sheriff about C-40. That ultimately resulted in the sheriff personally testifying against it. Last Monday, that C-40 accountability proposal was nearly deleted from even an additional final consideration because of a dot exercise that we were told would have no bearing on the business of this commission. The O2 amendment related to council for our proposals, that was some significant abrogation of council powers. So, in literally every instance when this commission has tried to do right by the public, who over and over again request accountability measures, people have shrugged or outwardly dismissed it. And so for that reason, I encourage people to actually support C-30 and the good quality work that can come from it, that can enhance and assist with the work flows of the Department of the Sheriff. And certainly I will be voting for every accountability measure that is now before the body, and that began with the appointment of the sheriff. Thank you.
Commissioner Rogie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Rogie, District 3. I would like to propose an amendment to this. And it is rather drastic. I've shortened it up quite a bit. And I did type it up so I could send an email to the chair, vice chair, and Katie. Send? Okay, because I hand wrote it. My proposal is the Pierce County Council may, by ordinance, establish an independent department of the ombuds to provide oversight of all elected officials and their offices in Pierce County government.
All right, so do I have a second to the amendment as stated? Commissioner Herrera seconds. So would you like to speak to your motion, Commissioner Rogie?
Yes. I believe that this type of an office deserves more consideration. It deserves a robust discussion and among the county council that represents districts and can get public comment. And I also believe that it shouldn't be targeted on one elected official or one elected department. So I believe this provides a clearer scope, balanced flexibility, with funding tight and services at risk, because this type of an office can get very expensive. It should be given a more public and transparent process for its creation. It should focus on all elected officials. The council shall determine the structures, powers, duties, funding, and if we really needed to, we could add this in here, but there have been policies at the charter level, which this is high level, that have been proposed, that were in the charter with regards to the veterans that I supported, where it authorized the council to develop a policy on veterans. And so I believe that this amendment holds all elected officials and their offices in Pierce County government accountable, and that it will give the council an opportunity to get more public comment
to give more, I guess, thought about how it could possibly be financed and prioritize it appropriately. So I do want to add that there are already checks and balances in the system. So taking into account, the council will take into account that there is an internal affairs office unit for the sheriff, there's code enforcement, and also there is a current long-term care ombudsman program, and that was not in the charter. So this can be created outside of the charter. I think that an office of ombudsman, we can put it in the charter, but I don't think we should be dictating all of the details about how it's formed, and we definitely don't have anything in here about how it's financed. So I kept it high level, and I ask for your consideration. Thank you.
Commissioner Molesky, is your hand up for the amendment that Commissioner Rogie put forward, or previously?
Previously.
Okay.
I'll retry.
Okay. I saw Commissioner Consuelo, and then over to Commissioner Haynick.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner Consuelo, District 6. I'm constantly in a tug of war of what high level is considered for this commission. So I don't know if high level is simple, or I don't know if high level is what is currently proposed for C30. But I'm leaning towards what is already in C30. I honestly, not that I don't care, but I don't mind having it be towards all elected officials. I think all elected officials should be held accountable. I do think that there's a difference when you have folks who are actively dealing with essentially direct care to the people of this county. So I don't see county council or the executive working with folks who are in crisis or in situations that are of high level. So hence the reason why the ombudsman is focused on the sheriff. But yeah, I don't mind it going to all elected officials. As of right now, though, the current amendment, I feel like should have more to it. So I'm hesitant about that. So thank you.
I believe there's a point of inquiry from Commissioner Hetherington.
Yeah, Commissioner Hetherington, District 2. Point of inquiry. So this original amendment is slated for Article 3. If it is the amendment to the amendment is all elected officials, that covers multiple articles. So it would essentially have to go into Article 9. So is that would be a brand new amendment and not allowed in this instance? Because this isn't truly, it's a completely different amendment.
That is a good question. I don't know if there is anything in particular in terms of parliamentary procedure that I need to consider before making a judgment on that. So I'm going to see if there's, that's, yeah.
If anything,
Point of order.
Yes, Commissioner O'Leary.
I think it'd be appropriate to ask legal.
And that's what I'm
Oh, I thought you were going to ask parliamentary.
well, and legal, yeah.
I mean, if anything, it might go into Article 2, because that's the legislative branch, if it's providing authority for the legislative branch to create something. So, but the article is part of the proposal, so the article could be subject to amendment as well.
Thank you. So I believe, thank you for your support in the card retrieval. These stands. So I'm going to say, because we haven't really addressed articles as the most important component, that potentially we could get an amendment to change that particular portion as well. But I think, especially since we've kind of delved into discussion already, I'd like to continue with this discussion. Although folks, yeah, okay, all right. So we'll continue with discussion, potentially an amendment coming down the road. All right, so I believe that takes us to Commissioner Hannick. Commissioner Hannick.
Okay, now I hear you. Commissioner Hannick, District 1. I have several points to make. One is, in my mind, and possibly in Commissioner Hunter's mind, that the word accountability, when we want to have accountability, it also means fiscal accountability. And I'm very concerned that we're not in the position to really thoroughly investigate the fiscal matters. This is more up to the council to look into a proposal such as this that makes a new department, a new position. I also don't know if it will change to be all of the executives and not just the sheriff. I think that would make it much better if we're going to have a position called ombudsman, that we may as well apply it to several different positions, not just one department. And the word public safety, now that it's incorporated into the amendment, that includes law enforcement, fire and rescue, EMS.
So, Commissioner Hannick, we're not talking about that at this point. We're just talking about the proposal from Commissioner Rogie that would actually change that language completely.
Okay, so that's the amendment then?
So right now we're talking about the amendment that Commissioner Rogie put forward, which strikes everything and just says the Pierce County Council may by ordinance establish an independent department of the ombuds to provide oversight over all elected officials and the offices in Pierce County government. And that would be the
And I would
entirety.
just agree with that and hold my comments for later.
Next we have Commissioner Hunter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Hunter, District 4. I'm open to being wrong about this, but I am pretty sure that the Pierce County Council already may, by ordinance, establish an independent Department of Ombuds. So this actually wouldn't even need to be in the charter, because they already have the authority to do this.
Vice Chair Lentz.
I'm going to speak in opposition to the amendment. The C30 was crafted specifically in response to multiple public comments that we've received, to sentiment that I have personally received from my constituents, from members of the community, who are speaking to the unique role that law enforcement plays in our government and in our community, and the specificity of the C30 proposal to deal exclusively with the office, the executive office of the sheriff, and the public safety components that that office is in charge of, I think is the whole reason for C30, and I would oppose this amendment because it completely eliminates the reasoning and the sentiment that was being brought forward.
Commissioner Stirratt.
Commissioner Stirratt, District 5. I'm also going to be, I think, quite obviously in opposition to this amendment. We have had 6 months to craft proposals that create inspector generals or ombuds for other departments or other elected offices that could, target the area that this amendment is attempting to target. But that was not accomplished. That was not done. That was not put forward by any other commissioner. So we have before us a Department of Ombuds, or Department of Sheriff Ombuds, Department of Public Safety Ombuds, I guess, with our amendment. And I would actually say I object to this amendment because it is completely misaligned from the original scope and intent of this proposal. And I want to speak to that. This proposal speaks specifically to the Department of the Sheriff because the work that they do is extraordinary, it's unique, it's challenging, it's grueling, it's frequently misunderstood by the public. It needs specific people, specific talent, who can speak to the complaints that are submitted related to it. That can't just be anybody, and it's very much different from all the other elected offices of the county. And so that is why a sheriff ombud's role in particular is worthy of insertion to the charter, because the responsibility of that office is so profound. It needs an equally skilled person to address it and resolve these concerns. So I strongly encourage people to object to this amendment, and if we had an interest in raising concerns about other offices, we had a long time to do so, and that was not done.
Commissioner Larkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I concur with the comments by Commissioner Lance and Commissioner Surratt. And I have a report with some numbers before me. Claims and litigation expenses for Pierce County between 2021 and 2025. There were $53 million paid out by the county for claims and litigation expenses. 21,500,000 approximately was for Sheriff Corrections. For Sheriff Law Enforcement. Sheriff Corrections, 5,300,000. Juvenile Court, 11,300,000. That's 72% of all litigation expenses that were paid out by the county. That's a significant number, and concurring with, in particular, Commissioner Surratt's comments around the specificity and sensitive nature of law enforcement and the special skills required to provide ombud service. I believe that those who are concerned about fiscal should look at, when you have an ombud, it's to prevent any type of continuing quality improvement, is to prevent expenses such as those. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you. I'd just like to, a point of clarification. I think I heard 11 million was for juvenile, so that would be under the judicial branch. So this ombuds wouldn't have any jurisdiction over that. So I don't see how that gives you a direct correlation to help. I think this, maybe the other department that you're thinking of forming would, but the sheriff's ombuds, just so everybody's clear, that 11 million is not part of what the ombuds would have any jurisdiction over if this goes through. Thank you.
Seeing Commissioner Rogie.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogie, District 3. We have talked about this before. We have made comments before about maybe this could be for more than just the sheriff, that if we had an ombuds, maybe it should be for all elected offices. So that is why I'm proposing it, and this is our opportunity to provide amendments. I know that this is a change, but in my opinion, something as important as this office, and it doesn't say you cannot do one on the sheriff, by the way, something as important as this office needs more time and more consideration and more thoughtfulness with regards to how to finance it, how to staff it, what the duties are related to this office, and the county council has time to do that.
This is a new proposal, and I think the body should dismiss it as a new proposal.
So, I already ruled on continuing the conversation, so I'm going to say point not well taken and go to Commissioner Strickland.
I think that this proposal, or this amendment to the amendment, sounds like enormous government, and I don't think that we should do that. On top of that, I think that the smaller version, within the scope of having it where when you have a department that can take away the liberties and take away the freedom of people, that I think that is a much better scope, until they're proven innocent or guilty. That is definitely a specific power that department has. So I think it's good when you think about the scope of that power, and then the rest of it seems like giant, enormous government. Thank you.
Commissioner Rydell Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Sheriff, one second, I will bring the camera on. I just want to highlight here that a few minutes ago, folks on this commission said that an amendment that doesn't substantially change the prior amendment, the amendment to the amendment, but adds clarity after a compromise position, was too much and a fundamental change and raised major concerns about it. And now they're trying to wholesale throw out an amendment that has been under discussion for months and revise it to a one-line thing. And these are the same people advocating for this that advocated against the other one, and I find that deeply problematic. And I am fundamentally opposed to this amendment to the amendment to the amendment. And I think it's very important that we move forward and get to voting on this, because we haven't taken a single substantial vote tonight.
Commissioner Rohr?
Commissioner Rohr, District 6. I won't be supporting the amendment because I believe it doesn't belong in the charter. It is an authority that's already given to our legislative body on both amendments. So, thank you.
Seeing no additional discussion, we will vote on the amendment to C30 as read by Commissioner Rogie. So all in favor of that amendment, please raise your cards.
Two.
All opposed, please raise your cards.
Oh.
14.
And then abstentions? So that motion fails. Back to discussion of C30 as amended. And I believe Commissioner Malowski, you are up if you would like to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Please forgive me. The reception I'm at Good Sam is not well, so I'm trying to find a good spot. In regards to C30, speaking with the president of the Sheriff's Guild and the Internal Affairs, Trent Stevenson, based on the information that they have provided, this C30 would not be a successful proposal that we should be working on. The one thing that we need to look into, as they brought to my attention, is that even if this existed, the STEP Act that needs to be part of this is the negotiation. There is a negotiation process that has to be done for the Ombudsman to be successful, to be able to submit what they have, their findings or investigations and so forth. So that is the one thing that just not going to work. The second thing is we got to talk about the fiscal impact on this. Based on the Sheriff Guild here, that the Sheriff Guild, it's going to take an estimated $25,000 per sheriff. All right, if this Ombudsman exists, because that's what's going to cost for the additional expenditures for that whole department there. In regards to that, the third thing is that if Commissioner Hunter is correct, that's something I need to look into. If there's an Ombudsman process already existing in Pierce County, then we really don't need another one. And stuff. We need to try to avoid duplicity as much as we possibly can in regards to this. But that's the thing, is the financial impact has not been discussed. We need to look at that. Any proposal that's going to add any type of financial impact to the community should be something that the council should be stepping into and not the charter. So this is something I will not support. Thank you.
Commissioner Hennick.
Commissioner Hannick, District 1. One of the items I think we should be very cognizant of is ballot space. And should this really be on the ballot, given the issues of the logistics of putting it onto the ballot, going to cost money, as well as we don't have the capability to really thoroughly investigate the financial costs, as Commissioner Malowski has pointed out. I'm also now concerned of the word public safety, which includes law enforcement, fire and rescue, emergency management, medical services, and disaster management. And yet we're really trying to focus on the Sheriff's Department. And so when we put the title of it onto the ballot, will the people really understand, we're not talking about all public safety measures. We're only talking about the sheriff's department and the jurisdiction of the sheriff. So I just want to point that out, that it is not easy to sell this type of item to the public when the words have double meanings.
Commissioner Rydell Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Rydell Kelly, District 4. I want to speak in very, very strong support of this amendment and the incredible work that's been put into it by the commissioners behind it in conversation with each other, various other commissioners in the room there, and with me and with the community. I think that it is thoughtful, reflective, responsive, and I believe it will ultimately save the county very significant amounts of money in both litigation through settlement and suits, and potentially in insurance. I want to note that I believe Commissioner Ginn and others have read and talked about exposure from liability for different departments a number of times now over multiple meetings, including the Sheriff's Office. That is all on the record. And that in prior meetings weeks ago, folks mentioned that there could be potentially, over the long run, a cost of up to $1 million a year, and they mentioned an ombuds office in Spokane. And I would just want to make sure that it's very clear here that the cost savings, I think the projected estimated potential cost savings from something like an ombuds, particularly around litigation, are dramatically in excess in the cost of having an ombuds. And the folks in this room, with this meeting, that are concerned about fiscal responsibility should be very much oriented towards supporting that. I support it for a whole host of reasons. I think that we need a lot more community oversight. I wish it had enforcement capacity. It can't for certain reasons, but that does not mean that it is not preventative of major problems. It doesn't disincentivize bad behavior, and it won't help prevent litigation. Finally, I think that we should be clear that there is a collective bargaining agreement. There are multiple collective bargaining agreements. Law enforcement officers that are organized under a collective bargaining agreement, like any other union, have an incentive to try to turn things into a bargainable, debatable issue. It is going to be up to the negotiating teams on both sides to determine whether or not it is, and potentially an arbitrator. And this is always the case with anything involving law enforcement, and it doesn't mean laws shouldn't be passed. This happens in municipalities and jurisdictions around the country all the time, and that is part of the process of wrestling through legislation, and it does not mean it shouldn't happen. So, thank you.
Commissioner Roki.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogi, District 3. I did do some research with regards to the Ombuds office, and looking at King County, they have a general office of the Ombuds that handles complaints involving county government, so it was the general concept of handling complaints. Snohomish has a similar citizen public advocate role with a single advocate position appointed by the executive and confirmed by the council. So there was some similarity there. But I think as I went through, and I'm just going to make a couple points here, that this office does enable the executive to have potential overreach into another elected official's office of responsibility. This is a powerful new office, which is unelected, and granting subpoena authority and broad investigative powers over independently elected sheriff undermines separation of powers, which I know we're already trying to do with C1, but I'm hoping the voters will vote that down. No fiscal note. And this office will have unending taxpayer funds to do all the investigating that they want. So unaccountable and unelected office structure invites backroom influence. Who is their boss? What if the ombuds is corrupt? It targets only elected sheriff. What about other electeds? It adds costly bureaucracy with uncertain benefits. We keep claiming that it'll save us money, but I'm not sure that that's really what we're getting at here. The sheriff is already accountable to the voters through elections and recall, internal affairs, investigations, legal and judicial oversight, and certification. It seems like this is yet another attempt to give the executive more authority over another office. And I can't support it. And I'm also going to quote a couple of what the other commissioners said tonight with regards to my proposal, that the council can already do this, so it's duplicative. They have the authority to create an ombuds office. And it sounds like big government. So I'm going to be a no. Thank you.
Commissioner Fletcher?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Fletcher, District 5. I do think accountability for public officials is an absolute requirement. It really depends on what's the source of that accountability. And I think for elected officials, accountability comes from the voters. That's the most direct, streamlined way of understanding where you stand with the public and whether you're doing a good job or not. And so doing accountability is great in theory. In practice, it doesn't always turn out that way. And so for me to be a yes vote for this, I would need to be certain that this sheriff ombudsman would provide oversight in the right way. I'm not sure it does that. And not to rehash prior comment, but the county council does have subpoena power. They do have investigatory power. They do have power of the budget. And so a lot of these organs for accountability exist. It seems to me that those are proper levers, proper mechanisms to establish accountability. And what was mentioned before, where's the efficacy that this will save money? As far as I'm concerned at this time right now, the idea that this will save money is conjecture. It's hypothetical, it's fantasy, it is not rooted in reality. There's no measurables that we can point to, there's no statistics that we can point to that this type of accountability done this way, which we've had 6 months to do, but albeit it's not a whole lot of time. We're all volunteers, we all have jobs, we all work outside of this. And so my question is this body the proper body to impose such accountability, given the fact that I have no data in front of me that I can, with certainty say this type of accountability is what's needed, this type of accountability will provide the results it is purported to accomplish. And so I am not supporting this accountability measure, not because I don't like accountability, but because I want accountability to be meaningful and to be measured and to be directed at the public good. I've said this on prior proposals that if there is a door open for potential dubious behavior, nefarious acts, I don't want to be part of it. I'd rather that door be closed than it be open an inch, with the fear that, well, it's very unlikely that it happens. And, the likelihood of it is not my concern, it is the absolute possibility. And so, without belaboring the point, I am not in support of this sheriff ombudsman to the extent that it would not provide the results that the sponsors who have worked tirelessly for these, for months on this to make the case. I don't think that case has been made. I don't know if there's going to be an ROI on on better insurance premiums, on lower costs that the county's paying out related to the Department of Sheriff or to the juvenile court. I think that's that's not part of this calculus right now, and so I wish it was, but it's not, and so I will be voting no on this. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Leary?
Thank you, Commissioner O'Leary, District 1. Many of the previous comments that have been made I'm aligned with. as it relates to the flexibility of this and having this live in the charter document, which is reviewed once every 10 years, for all the purposes, for all the reasons that have been stated by other commissioners here, I don't think we need a 10-year experiment. That's how this looks to me. Is accountability important? Absolutely. Is transparency important? Yes, it is. And I think all should be held to that standard. But again, as stated previously, this document doesn't do that, and I think putting it into the charter in this form takes away the flexibility necessary to build something like this through the council and their issues that they could bring forward, their modifications, to put this together with some kind of budgetary oversight and projection in a more comprehensive way. I think this is, we're throwing a dart in the dark here, maybe with a good intention, but I just don't think this is the right place for this to live, and I will be a no vote on it. But if the council were to take this on again, I believe they looked at this once before, I would hope that they would look at it very seriously. Thank you.
Commissioner Ginn?
Thank you, Commissioner Ginn, District 4. I want to respond to a couple things, but one is the overreach question. The executive is not over this role. The reason the proposal is so long is because we set up, in order to select the ombuds, there's a panel, and the sheriff and the largest bargaining unit within the Department of Sheriff are 2 out of 5 people who select who goes on the panel. So the executive is one of the 5, right, the executive branch. And so the reason this has to be so long is to ensure it functions independent of the executive, independent of the council, independent of any other undue political influence, and they can only be fired for cause, right? I mean, that all felt necessary along with the term limit and having a limit on the terms in order to ensure that it does function as an independent office. And then in terms of cost, there's a lot of data about the value of ombuds offices. I think Commissioner Rydell Kelly mentioned the International Ombuds Association in their ROI data say that an ombuds office typically saves an organization 3 to 8 times its operating costs by preventing expensive litigation. Obviously, that depends on how it's implemented. It has to be done right, but I think at this point, there's a lot of examples of good ombuds offices. There's processes. We've had an ombuds from the State Corrections Department come here and talk about the cost savings from his experience being in jails and being an ombuds. There's not another county ombuds as an example, but King County both has a general ombuds and they also have a Department of Law Enforcement oversight in their charter. They have both because the law enforcement oversight is such a specific thing and it requires so much work. So I just wanted to respond to some of those things. Thank you.
Commissioner Herrera?
Thank you, Commissioner Herrera, District 2. I just wanted to state that I do oppose the creation of an ombuds position over the county sheriff's office. The sheriff is an independently elected official who is directly accountable to the voters. Adding another layer of oversight through an ombuds would be an unnecessary and inappropriate attempt to control an elected office. And I'm confused as to where this is all coming from. It seems to be fueled by hate. The sheriff's office already operates under existing laws, public accountability, budget oversight, and the judgment of the electorate. If citizens are dissatisfied with the performance or priorities of the sheriff, the proper remedy is through the democratic process, not by creating a separate position that can interfere with the authority voters have granted. Voters being the key word. Placing an ombuds over the sheriff risks politicizing law enforcement and undermining the independence of the office. It could create confusion, duplicate existing accountability mechanisms, and open the door to indirect control by county officials who are not elected to run the sheriff's office. Furthermore, I'm also thinking of all of the sheriff deputies and staff. With the Pierce County Sheriff's Office constantly in the spotlight, I want to give them the courtesy and consideration they deserve. Deputies and police officers are already under enough scrutiny. There are some really good officers out there, and we should provide them the respect they deserve, doing their job, which is often scrutinized. It is not an easy job, or more would do it. Being under the constant microscope, as Pierce County and its deputies are, must be an extremely hard these days, and for that, I offer a sincere thank you to them for putting up with so much. So, I too am surprised by this proposal. I also believe in accountability. For instance, the absolute majority of the public has spoken out or wrote in against this, and you still shamefully put this forward. You're not listening. You're just simply not listening. Good government is a good investment, but caution should always be considered when it's other people's money. For these reasons, I believe the proposed Sheriff Ombuds position is unnecessary, excessive, and contrary to the principle that elected officials should remain accountable to the people who elected them. And this should also not be in the charter. It is not charter worthy, and I urge opposition to this proposal. Thank you.
Vice Chair Lentz.
Thank you. I'm speaking in favor of C30, Martha Lentz, District 7. First, I'd like to start with something that I keep hearing, which is that any proposal is enshrined for the next 10 years. That's just not true. There's two other ways besides our process that the charter can be proposed to be amended. The Pierce County Council can advance to the voters anytime they want, anytime there's an election. As long as they have 2/3 vote, they can advance a charter amendment. In fact, that's what they did almost immediately after the 2006 Charter Review Commission proposed and the people adopted the instant runoff voting. The council promptly repealed it. It can be done. An initiative of the people can also amend the charter. So I think it's a little disingenuous to speak against things by suggesting that we're locking something in that's untried and impossible to be adjusted for a 10-year period. I just don't think that's true. Secondly, speaking to this proposal itself, I would feel compelled to echo what Commissioner Surratt had said. We talk all about accountability. We want accountability. The voters need to provide or demand accountability from their elected officials. We do need accountability, yet every chance that we have to talk about something that legitimately puts in well thought out, well defined framework to provide that very accountability, it's dismissed and talked away and dismissed as government overreach. And it really is puzzling to me. I don't see how both things can be the case. And specifically with the accountability framework that this particular proposal presents, to echo Commissioner Ginn, it is complex. It's complex because it needs to be. It's complex because it builds in checks and balances at every step. This is not a separation of powers problem. At every step of the process, all three branches of government have opportunity to participate. The panel to select the nominee for the Sheriff Ombuds has the input of the Sheriff's Department, it has the input of the Superior Court, it has the input of the executive, it has the input of the Sheriff's Guild, the largest bargaining unit. When the OMSPUD is proposed to be nominated, it's the council that does that. Another check, another connection to the voters. When the OMSPUD is appointed, they can only serve for 2 terms. They can only be removed for cause, and that cause has to be approved by the council. They can only be removed by the council. Every step of the way, this has full participation of all the branches of government. It's not a separation of powers issue. And the proposal would also apply to the office of the Executive Department of the Sheriff, regardless of whether the sheriff is elected or appointed. It's not about one sheriff. It's about an accountability framework. It's about a process that members of the public are in fact asking for. If you look at written public comments as they've been coming in, people are asking after this, people are mentioning this, people are identifying C30, people are saying, I would like some accountability. And it can be completely independent of whether they also think that the sheriff should be elected or should be appointed. So I think this is a well thought out proposal. I think it has a lot to offer, and I think it's something that should be put to the people, and I'm going to be voting enthusiastically in favor of passing it on to the ballot.
Commissioner Rohr?
Commissioner for District 6. So C30, I still share concerns with changing the name of this proposal to public safety. That can be incredibly misinterpreted by the public, which that's what this charter is for. It's for the public. It's a standing document so that they understand it. So I think that's concerning. You know, the public might have a public safety issue with, homelessness. Well, do I call this ombuds? I think it's just confusing. It's not clear, and we're gonna choose to send it to the voters that way. So I also strongly believe that we have many accountability systems in place, including internal investigations, county council oversight, especially with the budget, council investigative authority, our prosecutors, courts, civil litigation, the state auditor, the Criminal Justice Training Commission, the Independent Deadly Force Investigations, the State Office of Independent Investigations. Washington also has made significant major law enforcement accountability reforms since 2020. One of those is Senate Bill 5974, which represents a substantial statewide reform. So it applies to every county, to every sheriff, to every law enforcement agency. To modernize law enforcement leadership standards, to strengthen accountability for sheriffs, police chiefs, and other enforcement leaders. And you can go to those websites, you can talk to those leaders, and they take their roles very seriously, but there is a whole laundry list of ways that they provide oversight and want to support the public in total. The legislation establishes uniform eligibility requirements, requires compliance with the Criminal Justice Training Commission standards, and creates consequences when leaders fail to maintain those standards. I think we also heard at the last meeting there were 2 complaints, the Criminal Justice Training Commission. So I also spoke about another bill, 5925, which allows investigative authority of the Attorney General's office, which is expansive. It is expansive. And then you talk about there's this body, that body. Like, who has the ball? It's, I understand the intent of the proposal. I do think there's legitimate hearing the public. There are concerns. I just don't think you address that in the charter. And commissioners with all different perspectives and political persuasions have voiced that and said that. also know that Pierce County is dealing with financial shortfalls today and significant shortfalls in 6 years, where we are at a budget cliff, $0 for funding our ongoing policies. And we're going to now tack on a new bureaucracy. And I do appreciate the work of actually the amendment to try to bring in the sheriff's office into that conversation. I absolutely commend that work. But there are concerns financially with our county as a whole. And now we're going to put a complex, that word has been said several times by commissioners, complex office with unresolved legal, operational, and fiscal questions. I would love to see this worked through the county council process, through ordinance with public input, legal review, fiscal analysis, labor review, and implementation planning and collaboration. I do absolutely believe accountability matters. A proposal like this may address important issues. These are important issues, and it still not belong in the charter. There is a work to be done. And accountability comes from your elected officials. We can talk to our council members, our executive, and those things are already possible. Already possible. And so I cannot support this amendment.
Commissioner Luggins? Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I first want to concur with the comments by my fellow sponsoring commissioners on this, Commissioner Lance, Commissioner Surratt, and Commissioner Ginn. And I also want to thank those in law enforcement in the county. I know I have tremendous respect for public safety. I have supported them in my role on City Council in the past. We increased funding by over 25%. I truly believe it is a difficult job and that they put themselves in harm's way in order to keep us safe. But I'm going to compare OMSPA to my role outside this commission. I'm a nurse practitioner. I work in critical care, pediatrics, neonatology, and if you bring a baby into the emergency room or a young child, I am the only provider in-house, I will be running the code to resuscitate that life. And one of the things that happens in that role, and this has evolved over the last 20 years plus in healthcare, is that we used to take the child or the infant to a different room and close the door and say, we're doing everything we can, and you stay right here, and we'll come back and let you know how it goes. And litigation was quite high. And so we went through a dramatic change, really about 10 plus years ago, where we instead invited family to watch us, to stay with us, to stay with their loved one, to hold their hand on their worst day often of their lives. And what that does is they see us, we have someone assigned to answer their questions, to try to explain what's going on so that we can focus on giving the care we need to. And what occurs with that is we had a dramatic decrease in lawsuits. And the reason we are encouraged now to do this by hospital attorneys is that transparency is key. And what this policy does is create transparency. And I honestly believe that having transparency for some of the investigations will show that some of those investigations are unfounded. And I think that when that is made public, what that does for our officers who are out on the streets is make them feel more respected by the community. It makes people less likely, I believe, to file lawsuits and have costly litigation. And I think sometimes you have to be willing to put in that extra effort for transparency, because I think overall this is going to make our officers safe. It's going to build trust for our officers in the community, and it's going to encourage a more community policing model where people will stand side by side and support their sheriffs, support their police, and support their law enforcement officers. I think truly this is a win-win. Additionally, one last comment I want to make is I heard from a lot of people who talked about they weren't sure if they were ready to vote for an appointed sheriff, but they wanted increased accountability. And I think for people who don't necessarily want to vote for an appointed sheriff want another option, and I think that this sheriff ombudsman proposal provides an option for people who might not be ready to give up, and I understand that. They're right to vote for their sheriff, and they may not want to support that on the ballot. This gives them an opportunity to increase that accountability. Thank you.
I believe that concludes first round of comments, so Commissioner Roby on second.
I just had one additional comment. This is Holly Rogie, District 3. Commissioner Rogie, sorry. I just asked the question again, who is this person's boss? Because if they don't do their job, it looks like a 2/3 vote of the council it will take to remove them, but they have to report to somebody, and it does say it's an executive office. So I'm just concerned that they're not accountable to the voters because they're not voted in, and they're appointed. And so I'm just concerned they don't have someone that they're accountable to. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Leary, District 1. Just wanted to point out that it calls out that that 3 candidates will be selected by a panel. The panel is a 5-member panel, which includes the executive, the sheriff, judges of the Superior Court, the Pierce County Bar Association, and the largest bargaining unit within the Sheriff's Department. And we have heard testimony from the sheriff and from the head of the Sheriff's Guild against this. So 2 of the 5 that are identified in here have spoken out in opposition to it. Now, I don't know if the other 3 entities were contacted to see how they feel about participating or supporting this, but my recollection is that 2 of the 5 do not. So I think that's something to also consider. Just because you see those titles, those names, those organizations, that doesn't give endorsement to this. Thank you.
Commissioner Rohr.
Commissioner Rohr, District 6. I too support our law enforcement officers. They are amazing. So are our fire, so are our military, those serving, who would lay down their life for someone they've never met. And so I take seriously the fact that, the Washington Association of Sheriff's Police and other member organizations across the country oppose proposals like this. Not because they don't want transparency, not because they don't want support. they sincerely want to do that. You know, at the legislature this past session, there was 5974, which got passed through largely on party lines. There was a bill also offered that was worked more on a collaborative, bipartisan effort. That bill never got a hearing. But they got the association to say, okay, we can support parts of your policy because we too support transparency. We too support, you know, the challenge that happens is our law enforcement with some of these organizations or oversight, they get vilified. They get threats. They have families. They work hard. They sacrifice. And so some commonly reported themes. Many officers feel they are under intense public scrutiny and criticism, including officers who believe they have never engaged in misconduct. Many agencies experience decline in morale, increased retirements, and difficulty recruiting officers, which retired Sheriff Pastor spoke to that morale and how important that is. When you go to work, it's really important. With the level of responsibility these amazing people hold, morale is even more important. Officers report feeling uncertain about rapid changing laws, policies, use of force standards. Some officers felt reforms were necessary and supported efforts to improve accountability and community trust. Many community members, meanwhile, felt long overdue reforms were needed because of excessive force, racial disparities, and lack of accountability, which many of those things are addressed through already fully funded bodies, agencies, accountability mechanisms. And so I just wanted to speak to that in terms of our law enforcement, and I too think that. So, thank you.
Commissioner Consuelo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Consuelo, District 6. While I agree with some of the sentiments from my previous commissioner on the efforts that the Sheriff's Office poses to support our community, I'm going to mention real-world applications of why we need a Sheriff's Ombudsman, even here in our backyard of Tacoma and Seattle. I remind folks of the Manny Ellis case that happened here in Tacoma. I remind folks of the Indian graduate student in Seattle who, her name was Johnavi Kandula, who was hit by a police officer in Seattle. And the reason why there was accountability was due to the Seattle Office of Police Accountability after concluding their investigation. And so while there is a lot of good that is done, there's also necessities for these overarching oversight capabilities and capacities. So I want to remind folks that there's two sides to the same coin. Thank you.
All right, that concludes discussion on the motion to move C30 as amended to the ballot. So we will take a roll call vote for anything that is moving on to the ballot, potentially, if it's voted in, and it does require 11 votes regardless of quorum, or regardless of the number of people who are here tonight.
Lisa Boyd,
Aye.
George Consuelo,
Aye.
Mason Fletcher,
No.
Kate Ginn,
Aye.
Sharon Hannick,
No.
Caleb Heimlich,
No.
Elizabeth Herrera,
No.
Billy Joe Heatherington,
Yes.
Jake Hunter,
Yes.
Martha Lance,
Yes.
Justin Layton, and that would be Bucky.
Who did? Yes.
Brenda Likens,
Yes.
Brenda Molesky, Commissioner Molesky,
Maybe we can come back.
Jerome O'Leary,
No.
Holly Rogie,
No.
Lujana Roar,
No.
Devin Riddell Kelly,
Yes.
Troy Surratt,
Yes.
Jen Marie Strickling,
Yes.
Judson Willis,
No.
Kelsey Barons,
Yes.
and we'll circle back, Commissioner Molesky, Brenda Molesky,
I don't know what the exact kind of rule is here, but would we just count that as an abstention?
yes, yep, you're gonna count it as an abstention. Okay, I have 11 in favor, 8 opposed, and 1 abstention.
So that motion passes. And with that, I would like to see if there's any objection to a 10-minute recess.